Hi and welcome back to the Ruby Tuesday. My name's Ruben and this is my review for House of the Dragon Episode 1. It feels like we've been waiting so long for the rumors and rumors of the pre-sequels and the prequels and the other series that are coming off the back of Game of Thrones. Now, if you're like me, you probably had a bitter taste in your mouth at the end of Game of Thrones, the end of the season. So you went into this or when you're watching this, you went into this a little worried, kind of wondering if it's going to have the same sort of impact that Game of Thrones originally had. And if you think back to that original episode of season 1 of Game of Thrones, that impact with the Starks, I was hoping that there was going to be something like that compared to the kind of feeling that you had when you had that mystery, that sense of fantasy that you were going into, and every week you would sit and wait for that next episode. So here we are, House of Dragons. Let's get into it. Episode 1 is an hour and 6 minutes long. There's going to be 10 episodes in this series, and the first episode really is a prerequisite setting up of the future, not just this season with the 10 episodes, but kind of linking the 200 years before to things to come. Even in this episode, they kind of mention things that's going to happen in the future. But what I really liked is how they spend a lot of time character-based, all those kind of ticking the boxes of what makes Game of Thrones Game of Thrones. In House of the Dragons, you have all of that. The dragons are there. They're like pets, really, this time round. The visual effects for them are fantastic. If you've seen the trailers, you know that that's what you're going to get. But really, what makes Game of Thrones, particularly House of the Dragons, feel like Game of Thrones is the court intrigue and the family there within. We've got the Targaryens, and you wanted to see, is there going to be gore? Is there going to be violence in amongst the court jesting, the machinations of everybody kind of getting one up each other, trying to still fight for that throne? And we start at a period of peace, but there is this, we need a new heir. The current king is struggling to have an heir. Something happens at the beginning. We set off the kind of the story arc of what's going to happen for the future. Now, the things I was looking forward to, I was hoping that the theme and the score for the opening was there from the Game of Thrones, that they just weren't going to like break away from that, but kind of incorporate it. And they have done that. Ramin Djawadi has done an excellent score piece with the score throughout, not just in the beginning, but kind of bringing that theme tune in and out, and it really kind of reminds you of why you love so much. Score plays a big part of it. Theme tune kind of plays a big part, and that comes in and out of it, which I thought was a nice way to go with it. Matt Smith plays Prince Viserys. I was very interested to see how he was going to play this character, and for me, he's going to be one of those characters that I love to hate watching on screen. I feel like he's going to be the cause of a lot of issues throughout the episodes. Even as the king's brother in this first episode, you can see the head butting and the way they look at life, the way they want to kind of fight for control and control differently, and that already brings rifts apart in the family. His character is very arrogant, powerful, and scary. So whenever he's on screen, you get that sort of feeling that you used to get with some of the characters. Like, you kind of wonder what he's going to do next. What decision is he going to make that's going to spur things on in the future? Now, I would say I was surprised that there wasn't as much gore as expecting, but when there is gore, it is like chunky gore. You'll know what I mean when you see it. And there is sex in this episode. The thing I really wanted to get from this episode was, will I like the characters enough to start me on this journey for wanting to keep to watching every week? I immediately kind of fell in love with the Starks. You kind of chose in the Starks who you really liked, and those kind of characters just in episode 1 of Game of Thrones. And it's going to be compared to the comparisons because it is a Game of Thrones prequel. And so coming off of that, thinking about that at the end of this episode, I would say, thankfully, there are characters that I actually care about, and I'm looking forward to watching the story hatching their progression. Now, I don't think it had the same impact for me, but there were moments where my jaw was like, wow, that's vicious, or that's really harsh. And now I know I'm watching Game of Thrones because this type of thing has happened. It does place you in the zone and gets up that excitement that you're looking forward to watching this every week. It's the sort of series that my wife and I have always found very difficult to binge watch, because when we watch it, it's very dark, it's very heavy. I know a lot of people do binge watch the series. I find it difficult. I feel like weekly is, you get a chunk of the violence and the fantasy and the sex and the gore, and all of that is in here. within the court intrigue that you have with the people trying to play mind games over each other, and then physical games. There's a tournament in this episode as well, which is interesting, kind of introducing a new world. Although we've been introduced to this before, it's 200 years before, so they're kind of introducing all these characters and refreshing us, and I think they've done a really good job. I did wonder how much budget this was getting, or whether HBO were a little bit worried about how well this series would do, but that's not reflected in the set pieces at all. It looks fantastic, big, grand. The dragons are top notch. The graphics with the dragons I mentioned earlier have just gotten better. I am interested to see some of those other set pieces that we're going to be getting. It does feel like there's a clear map, thankfully, for a storyline. At the beginning, there's an idea at least of where things are going to be going. I just hope it keeps it fresh and it's not just all trying to lead to the beginning of season 1 of Game of Thrones, but rather that we're going to have a contained story within these 200 years. But my favorite things in this were probably the characters that were revealed that you could probably be rooting for later on, and those characters that you love to hate. The dragons and them, of course. And I think the King's Hand, once again, person that has amazing acting range and ability. We have such an eclectic, really interesting, very talented cast with Paddy Considine playing King Viserys. We have Matt Smith, Prince Damien, Rhys Ifans as Otto Hightower. But Graham Tavish probably is the character that stole the episode for me, even though he doesn't have many lines in it and he doesn't say much in it, and he isn't in the episode that much. But whenever he is, he's the character that I think I'll be following along. He has a lot of presence. He's big. I've always loved his acting, but every time he's on screen, there's something about the presence that he brings to the characters that he's with at the time that I'm just like, oh, I think your story is going to be interesting. So all in all, this was a fun, interesting ride once again back into the Game of Thrones world. So House of the Dragon, I think, could be fantastic. It is the first season, so they're setting up this new world and universe again. But I do hope there's going to be much more interesting story development, that this first episode was really just the starting, which it obviously is. But the development's not going to take a back seat, that they're going to quickly get into some of those other storylines that is needed for this series to keep our attention. Fantastic set pieces, fantastic acting, fantastic cast. And as always, amazing dragons. So let me know your thoughts down below. Did you like it? Did you not? Did you have issues with it? What did you think of the score? Thanks so much for watching, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and choose.